Welcome to episode 4, part 2 of the Squillium series. We're talking to Chess, who last episode told us about his rough start in the first 25 years of life. And now, moving forward, we're going to hear about his path to recovery and how he got to where he is now. Stay tuned for the next half hour.
I was 25 and went to a couple meetings and thought, okay, well, this is interesting. I don't really identify with any of these people. They're older. They're not, you know, I don't know. They're not posh as I would like them to be. Nobody drove fancy cars. It was just kind of like, oh, okay. Um, and, but my brother suggested I go to this Pray Away the Gay place. And I thought, you know what? I got nothing to lose. So off I go to Akron, Ohio, to a facility there, and I had a little apartment across the street from the campus. And I would go in almost every day for meetings and psychotherapy sort of thing. And I was there for a couple of weeks. And funny thing is, I was there. I had a small car that I had rented, and I would go out to the gay bars in Akron at night and hang out. I didn't drink, but I'd hang out and have a good time. Then I'd get up the next day and go to this Pray Away the Gay place. I mean, it just, it was, the movie that this would make is really good. But anyway, I would go to this thing, and one
We'll
of the
have to keep the
counselors,
we'll have to keep the recording and pitch it to someone someday.
I know, right? I went to this really, obviously he was a good psychologist and or therapist. I don't know what his credentials were. He might have, who knows. Anyway, so I went to him and he said, it sounds like it. And we had talked about my drinking. It sounds like you're okay being gay. And I said, yeah, I am. And he said, but you sound like you have a drinking problem. And I was like, yes, that's it. That is the problem. And I mean, he knew from what we had shared, what I'd shared, what we talked about, that was where my problem was coming from. And it wasn't,
Mhm.
even though he was paid to make me straight, um, that wasn't the problem. So that's when I got in my car and my rental car, or either turned my car in and flew back home, I guess, and came back to Greensboro or Winston, in fact, and went to a couple more meetings. And then I met this cute guy from Wake Forest Law School. And he knew that I had quit drinking. He was very supportive, but I really thought that we needed to celebrate our new relationship by drinking a bottle of champagne. And we did. And the rest of the night is a blur.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm pretty sure, well, I know for a fact, he ended up back at my place. And pretty much that's where my now relationship of 28 years started. Um, so 28 years later, we're still together. Um, but
Well, it's good that you're still together.
yeah, it's amazing that we're still together. But we started drinking that night, and he was not a heavy drinker like I was, but quickly became my drinking buddy.
Hmm.
And for 10 years after that, we drank solid 10 years. Um, I can't say that things were all that bad, but I always knew when I woke up, and when I say bad, I mean like I didn't have a DUI. I didn't, a lot of the things that happen to people didn't happen to me. My bottom is pretty high, I would say.
Hmm.
Um, and what I mean by that is like I didn't lose my car, my house, my family, my dog. Like I had all that stuff intact, right? Um, but um, when I would wake up in the morning and think I was going to die, or when I'd wake up in the morning and think I have to run downstairs and get a beer before I can take a shower or do anything else, um, I would think to myself, "Oh my God, you're such an alcoholic!" Like I knew, and it's a different voice. It wasn't that sort of snarky, har har
Hmm.
har, drunks go to bars, alcoholics go to meetings. It wasn't that sort of snarky voice. It was this like the real voice of my inside saying, you're an alcoholic and you shouldn't be drinking like this.
So it seems like there was a lot of self-awareness going on, and then
Oh, absolutely.
kind of
But it didn't stop me.
you're ignoring it though.
Absolutely. I was aware, but I did not care. And I think it was because I didn't know how. I didn't know what to do. I knew what I'd learned in the few months that I was involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, that drinking like this wasn't normal. Like, normal people don't get up at 8 o'clock and have a beer before they can do anything else. Normal people don't drink before going to a cocktail party. Normal people don't.
They drink at the cocktail party.
They drink at the cocktail party, but they don't have to have 2 drinks to get there. And, normal people don't. Normal people really don't go to bars and sit for 8 hours and drink all day. Not just beer, but Jägermeister shots and everything else that you can think of. That's not actually normal drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Most people have a way of saying, "Oh man, I've had too much to drink. It doesn't feel good to me. I don't want to drink anymore." But I was not a normal drinker, and I didn't know how to stop. And one morning we woke up, and my now husband John said, "I can't go to work, and I'm sick. I can't do it." And for some reason, like, the voice that I had heard all those years said, "You've got to stop or he's going to die."
Mm-hmm.
And it literally, I got up, we called a doctor. The doctor sent some medication over for John. A friend of mine and ours actually came over and sat with him. And I got in my car and drove to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. It was a Thursday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And when I walked in the room, this is funny when you think about the way meetings are run these days. So I walked in this room. It was in the basement of a Lutheran church.
There you go. Basement of a church.
Always the basement of a church. I walked into the basement of this church, and it was a room full of women. And I thought, well, this is nice. And I said, "Hey, this is my first meeting in 10 years. And the woman I spoke to said, "Well, honey, this is a women's meeting." And I was like, "Oh, shit." Here I have hunted for a meeting all morning. I found one nearby, and it's a women's meeting, and I'm going to have to go. And she said, "No, no, 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 no. You stay. You stay. It'll be okay." And
I don't mean to offend, but did you say, "It's okay, I'm gay"?
Yeah, well, I wanted to. I think they probably knew that. They probably figured. By my reaction, I'm sure I made some funny comment, but they invited me to stay, and it felt to me like I had just, like, how you can kind of imagine something like the scene of something. It felt to me like I had crawled up on the table in the middle of the room and curled up in the fetal position, and this group of women just took care of me.
Mm-hmm.
And they really did help me that day to feel accepted and understood and loved and not embarrassed or ashamed. I was in the right place. And while I never went back to that same women's meeting, I continued from that day on to go to meetings every day.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea in recovery is, or we do here in AA, is 90 meetings in 90 days. And I took it really seriously. I went to meetings every day, and sometimes twice a day. I'd go to an early morning meeting, and then after work, I'd go to another meeting. And the conversation I had with John about it was, I spent so much time literally wasted in a bar.
Mm-hmm.
And I can spare 2 or 3 hours a day to take care of my health and to recover from this disease. And that's what I did. I mean, I did my 90 meetings in 90 days. I got a sponsor. I won't go into great detail about that. I'll just say that I had some of the best sponsors in the world. I still have a really great sponsor who I've worked with for years. I've had 3 sponsors. 2 of them are deceased.
Mhm.
And they both died sober and health, like happy and in healthy relationships. And they're the kind of people I want to be when I die. Like I want to die like they did. But um, my sponsor now is just an amazing man, and I trust him. That's a big part of this program, is learning how to trust people. I did not trust people when I first got sober. It was so hard for me to do that, and to be able to learn and to accept the fact that, yeah, some of these people actually care about me. I mean, I had to feel it out, but the sponsor I have now is an amazing person I can trust, and he helped me because at the time I got sober in 2002. So
Mhm.
to put that in context, in 2001, I had a small business at that point. 9/11 happened in September,
Mhm.
and my business was contingent on holiday spending, Christmas spending. Uh, and in 2001, nobody spent money at Christmas. Everybody was scared. Nobody went shopping. It was the worst Christmas ever. So when I got sober in June 2002, I was still buried in debt and fear. And I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen with my small business.
Mhm.
And I didn't know how to handle relationships with debtor, the people who were calling me to collect the debt. Um,
Mhm.
and I was terrified. And my sponsor finally said to me, "Why don't you try being honest with them?" And I was like, "Well, I don't even know how to, I don't know what you mean." And he was like, "Well, first of all, you have to talk to them. You can't just not talk to them. But why don't you tell them what's going on?" And I started trying that, and damned if those people didn't work with me. Um, they understood. I said, hey, first of all, I'm still reeling from 2001, which they all were as well.
Mhm.
And the second thing I said was, and I'm also new in recovery, and I'm trying to live a different way. So I want to pay you back, but I don't know how I'm gonna do it. I mean, I can only send you $100. And this is, here I had a debt. I owed somebody $10,000, and I'm telling them I'm going to send them $100. I thought for sure they would laugh at me, and
Structured payment. They'll take what they can take.
they said send us $100. That's fine.
Yeah.
And they worked with me, and I got all of that debt paid off. And what? It was just a novel concept to me to actually address this straight on,
Mhm.
because I'd never done that. Like I always would make up something and get away with it, and I'd eventually pay, but I'd drag my feet as long as I could. And usually it's because of some bad spending spree I'd go on, or some drinking, trip that I'd take, and didn't have the money to pay my bills.
Mhm.
But I was able to build back after that. My business did really well. But what changed in over the years, though, was me.
Mhm.
Um, I loved my business. I was a very nice men's and women's clothing store, and I said, I love working with these people. I love my customers, but I don't really enjoy doing what I'm doing. Like I feel like it's really superficial and it's not deep. And I really like the deeper connections that I have with people. And I think one of the reasons my business was successful was I had really deep relationships with my clients.
Mhm.
So I decided in 2007 that I would close my store. And part of my story that I didn't go into today was my educational experiences. I had really struggled in college, and just decided, to hell with it. I don't need a college degree. I'll just go do my own thing. And that's what I did. And it was not, fortunately, it was successful, and I was able to make money and survive by doing so. Um, but in 2007, I was really ready to try something different. And I applied for a job at UNCG in the development office as a fundraiser for the College of um, Music, which was then it was the College of Music then. Now it's the College of Visual and Performing Arts. And I got this really lovely letter from the woman who ran the advancement office. And I have it hanging on my wall in my office because it means that much to me. And she said, you're a great person. We'd love to have you, but you don't meet our minimum requirement of having a baccalaureate degree. And I thought, damn, I can't even get a job doing what I'm good at because I don't have a degree. So I decided to close my business and go back to school and finish my undergraduate degree. And that's what I did. Closed my business. I probably made more money in that last 6 months than I'd made in my entire life. Going out of business is very lucrative. But I closed the store, started school, and by 2009, I had graduated. And I had a degree in religious studies and a minor in psychology, and I loved it. At that point, I wanted to go to grad school. There's a whole nother chapter of my life that goes into that, but I'll cut to 2012. I graduated with a Master of Divinity from Duke, and which is a big deal because really I never expected to be accepted into a fine school like Duke.
And especially with that's what they do is that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was such a good experience to go to this school. I had mediocre grades, but anyway, they accepted me, and I had a great experience there. And what's fun is I applied for a job at UNCG in a different office in the College of Arts and Sciences, but also in fundraising. And they hired me. And ironically, the woman who sent me away years before ended up being my direct supervisor. So it was great. It was great to like walk in her office and say, "Here I am. You got me to go back to school."
Did you show her the letter?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I said, I've had this letter, and you inspired me to go back to school. And this is, now I work in an office with students coming in and out all day, and they're, some days they're like, I just want to drop out of school, blah blah blah, and I say, go read that letter, and then let's talk about it. And usually that's a good encouragement point for people to say, okay, yeah, I'll stick it out. But so I worked in development here for 8 years and loved being part of the university. I really value what we do at UNCG. And but the position in this program, the Spartan Recovery Program, came open. The woman who had it for 5 years prior was retiring. And I had been involved peripherally with the program just as a resource in the community for students, and really not that involved, but around enough. If they had a speaker panel and they wanted somebody from the university who was sober to speak, they'd invite me to speak, that sort of thing. So I was at a reception for the woman who was retiring.
Mm-hmm.
And the supervisor of this department, the counseling center here at UNCG, and I were talking, and I said, man, I would love to have this job. This is like the perfect job. And in the meantime, I've been asked to serve on the hiring committee
for this job.
For this job. And I'd agreed to do so. So here I am at this party, and I'm like, yeah, I sure wish I could do this job, but I'm really happy I'm going to be on the hiring committee. That makes me really happy that I can do this. And she said, well, why don't you apply? And I said, well, I don't really have a lot of clinical background. I'm not a, alcohol and other drug counselor. I don't have a social work degree. I have an MDiv, and, MDiv pretty much covers everything, but, people don't really think about it that way. And she said, well, you should apply. I was like, huh, okay. So
a very important person's telling you to apply to this job.
Yeah, I called the woman who was heading the committee to hire for the position. I said, I have to step away from this committee, but expect my resume. So I applied, and, things worked out. I went through a great interview process. I took the job in March of 2020, and the pandemic started, and that's where I started the week of like the big shutdown. So I never even got to go to my office until several months later.
Oh,
But
wow.
I worked from home. They got me a computer. We immediately changed the programming for students to be able to sign on through Zoom and have meetings through Zoom. It was a whole different. I felt like I was recreating or creating a new program altogether, and I think that's probably a blessing in a way, because now I didn't come in as the person who retired, like the person who followed them that everybody hated. I came in, it was a whole new system that had to go into place, and it wasn't my fault. So I came in
Yeah,
and
someone
I
just
was,
happened to be leaving. Yep.
yeah. And then so I came in and had to start the whole thing up again. And it wasn't anybody's fault. It was just that the pandemic came, and there you go. So here I am. I have this great office. I work with about 60 students on average per semester. Summer school, we have about 25 right now, or 25 to 30, I guess. And it's a growing program. Um, our The opportunity here is for students to have a place where they can go to have recovery coaching. I've actually gone back to school and just finished my substance abuse counseling certification, and I'm in the process
Nice.
of getting what's called the LCAS. It's a licensed clinical addiction specialist.
Very nice.
So yeah, I'm an associate, and I have to tell you, I've never loved a job more in my entire life. If you had told me 10 years ago or 8 years ago,
Or
when I
19
came to
years
the
ago.
or 20 years, yeah, exactly, that I'd be doing this, I would have laughed. My idea originally, and the reason I went to Duke Divinity School, was I thought that I would be in church ministry. I thought that I might be a pastor or a priest of some sort, and ended up being ordained actually in the United Church of Christ, and very happy to be a part of a denomination that is so welcoming and inclusive and really thoughtful about harm reduction and the way that we approach drug use. I always thought that I might end up in a church, like in a parish working. And honestly, the work I do now is the work of the church. It is kind of like the social system that needs to be in place for people to find safe space to recover and to find non-judgmental space. When I ask someone a question and they say, nobody ever asked me that.
Hmm.
When I say, hey, what is your drinking giving you? What's helping you with this? And they say, gosh, nobody's ever asked me that. It's the work of it's amazing work. That's
Hmm.
all I can say about it. Um, I get up early in the morning because I can't wait to get here.
Hmm.
I end up staying late because I don't want to go home, because there's always something good happening, and my students are interesting. They care about their academics. They care about each other, which is part of recovery. I mean, part of recovery is kind of getting out of yourself, and you're not the center of the world. And once I realized that myself, that's when my life changed.
Hmm.
And that's when things started getting a little clearer about who I wanted to be as a person, not just in recovery, but as a guy walking down the street. Am I the guy who says hi, or am I the guy who turns away from someone? And I want to be the guy who says hi, even if it gets me in a long conversation with somebody I don't want to talk to. Um, I'm able to say, you know what, I appreciate this conversation, but I've got to move on. I can do that
Yeah.
now, where I don't have to hide from people. I'm not afraid of those people that I was afraid of in high school. Probably their kids are coming to see me now for help, and I'm happy to be here for them. The irony of that to me is not lost. Um, so yeah, that's kind of
Cool.
my story. I like it, and I think it's uh, when I've talked to classes at UNCG about my recovery story, not necessarily about Spartan Recovery Program, but about my recovery story, they kind of look at me like, holy shit, like you've been through a lot.
Mhm.
And I have. What I have found is that I'm resilient. Uh, I value education. I value integrity. I value honesty. Um, I value other people's stories as being important and relevant. Good way to be in the world.
Well, we thank you for coming on today. And is there anything else you want to share before we end?
Hmm. Yeah, if people are interested in supporting the Spartan Recovery Program, we have a website at UNCG, and it's if they go there, there's a way to donate, and we have a scholarship fund that I'm really proud of that we just established this past year. We have 4 students now who have received scholarships based on that fund, and we hope it grows to a place that we can support all of the students because they all deserve it. They're all amazing. So yeah, that's all I would add to this.
Now you're plugging stuff in my podcast. All right.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's okay.
Is there a book that you're selling right now? What are you doing?
No, I'm not.
Come on, you gotta have a book.
I'll just put the link in the description for the donation.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. So, Chess, it was great to hear your story. Thank you for sharing so much. And for everyone listening, I hope you have a great rest of your day.